No G with a Z, Pod. This is the Smoking Guns podcast. Thanks for joining us once again. Hopefully that came out okay. We have these new tools that I'm not used to running. Phillip Higginbotham not with us, but I am Leo Yamas along with my co-hosts RC and
Hello.
joining us once again Ralph Judkins. I'm sorry, I didn't give you a chance to say hi, RC. Go ahead and say hi, RC, to all the folks out there.
Hello, beautiful people.
And Ralph, go ahead and say hello to everyone.
Howdy, folks. Thanks for joining us again. I'm starting to make a habit of this.
Yes,
I like it.
yeah, we like the habit. We enjoy having you here, Ralph. Thanks for joining us once again. This is the Smoking Guns podcast. We are a podcast about professional football in San Antonio, including the 100-yard variety for our San Antonio Brahmas, and more importantly, at least at this time of year, the 50-yard indoor variety of our San Antonio Gunslingers, our now 8-2 San Antonio Gunslingers, still technically in first place, technically, but we had a rough go this past Saturday. We were there; all three of us were there at the watch party to witness our gunslingers taking on the Orlando Predators, who are fighting for their playoff lives. And we'll start with the watch party. It seemed like a pretty good turnout there. Um, Actually, there was quite a few fans there in attendance to watch the game. It was a rowdy environment there at Alamo Beer. A lot of fans not quite there all the way to the end, leaving with a little bit of dejection there, as we all know how this game went. But we're going to talk about that. It was good to see you guys there and enjoy the time that we had, despite what was going on the live stream. What did you have to? What did you observe, RC, from the watch party? This was your first time back. You had taken a little getaway. So how did it feel to be back at the watch party with your fellow gunslingers posse?
Yeah, your mic's muted.
I said it feels great, but I wanted to mention we have a mascot. I don't know if you know, but we have a mascot. So
Yes.
anyway, so hello everybody from the mascot. It felt great. Last week I was in Vegas, as y'all know, and I'm back now. And I was really surprised we had such a great turnout. I mean, usually we get 15, 20, but okay, I'm horrible with numbers, but would you agree there was like at least 50 or
I say
more?
it was approaching that number.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was quite 50, but it was definitely close. There was a lot of gunslingers, red, white, and blue there. A lot of people excited about this game. And even through what we were witnessing, the first quarter, second quarter, uh, everyone was still hopeful and loud. And we had the bandit there,
Yes,
the
we did.
Gunslingers bandit who was
Rick
leading in
Vela.
cheers and everything, Rick Vela, when we started to maybe mount a little bit of a comeback, but we're getting ahead of ourselves there.
Right.
But yes, it was a very nice crowd. Of course, Ralph was one of the first there in attendance, getting set up with his old trusty pad and pen
I
to
saw that.
take
I didn't know
down
if
the.
we were taking having a test afterwards or what. I was like, oh my gosh.
Well,
But one thing that I really noticed was that you could easily distinguish all of the fans because they were all wearing merchandise, whether it hats, t-shirts, both, cowbells, it didn't matter. Literally everybody there had something that said Gunslingers. And if you notice in the during the game, rarely, rarely did you see anyone in those fans have any kind of merchandise or gear related to their team. So kudos to the gunslingers and the staff and the merchandise people because literally I could say we were 100% representing the gunslingers at Alamo Beer.
and that was good news for the team as far as that goes. But it was, as you said, Leo, this was all fans.
Mhm.
The the Steubings were either at or had gone to Orlando or were celebrating on the coast in preparation for the 4th of July
Hmm.
weekend at a retreat down there. So they weren't there. It was just us and the fans, and of course the videographer. And
That's
Yeah.
right.
I don't think he's going to cut a video from that one because there wasn't a lot of cheering. I mean, it was a long, dreary halftime.
It was.
Yeah. I saw Robert Seco there, the videographer, and it seemed like he was more wearing his fan hat than his work hat. I'm not
Mhm.
sure if that was the intention going in or if because of the mood of the crowd, if he decided that probably wasn't the best time to stick cameras in people's faces to show the look of concern and just dread at moments throughout that. But he was definitely wearing his fan hat and cheering on the team and showing his disappointment just the rest of the way the rest of us wore with what we were seeing unfold. As Johnny Salazar said a little while ago, when we mentioned the colors, everybody wearing red, white, and blue. He said he was wearing red and white, but he left blue, as all of the fans did on Saturday evening, unfortunately. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what got us to that state. um, Obviously, the game didn't go the way we wanted to.
No.
Uh, the Predators coming in, fighting for their playoff lives, looking to really make a statement with this home game and get a win and kind of cement their advantage over the West Texas Warbirds.
Hmm.
And I think they caught the Gunslingers maybe snoozing a little bit, maybe just not quite as focused. I know they flew up the day prior to the game. I don't know if they were not rested, but they definitely weren't focused. It definitely looked a little bit unprepared. Would you say the same, Ralph?
I don't know if I'd go so far as unprepared, but I would say that the first quarter was an unmitigated disaster.
Hmm.
What the reason for that is, was it motivation of the Predators to try to notch a win, saying, we got nothing to lose, and with a win here, we can get closer, one win closer to locking down the fourth and final and not worry about West Texas nipping at our heels anymore. And plays led to plays.
Yep.
That first series, two strip sacks or two strips effectively, two fumbles, both recovered by the Gunslingers, but on fourth down it almost didn't matter.
Yeah, that series kind of really set the tone for the rest of the game. Unfortunately, it was off to a rough start, and it just kind of got the Gunslingers rattled, and they didn't really ever recover. Uh, Jay Washington chiming in on YouTube. Orlando's defense shut down the Gunslingers for a quarter and a half. Prince had 3 TDs in the first, I believe. And yes, that is correct. And that was kind of the aspect where I said maybe a little bit unprepared because Darius Prince had some of these catches, not just his touchdown catches, but during these drives, it seemed almost like pitch and catch between him and quarterback Danny Southwick, who was kind of taking what the defense was giving him, little dinks and dunks here and there, where Darius Prince was wide open in the middle of the field. And when you leave Prince, who's probably, if not the best, but one of the best wide receivers in the NAL, wide open like that, I don't know exactly what the defensive game plan was, but I'm sure that wasn't it.
And
So, well, go ahead, Ralph.
you're right. Prince was a big feature in that game. He was the guy they were going to throw to when they needed a key reception and a key point, when they were at a third and long, second and long, whatever it was. Anytime they were in a hole, you passed to Darius Prince and you got out of it. And insult to injury, on every single one of those first three turnovers, the Predators scored all three of the times to Darius Prince. And to cap it all off, uh, they kick a deuce. And it's 22 to nothing at the end of the first quarter.
Right.
Yeah. So at the game, watching this unfold and seeing this kind of implosion that we're watching of our gunslingers on the field in front of us, um, particularly it felt like it was the offense, um, while we're watching it live, and particularly it felt like a lot had to do with the shortcomings of Arvell Nelson, the quarterback, who is widely regarded as a very dangerous quarterback. You know, he's in the conversation for MVP of the league. He's
Right.
got the stats to back it up, but we've seen that he's had his moments where it seems like he struggled. Uh, had a great game last week, and so we felt good going into this road game here. But there was definitely um, an issue there with this the Gunslingers offense right off the bat of the game. Um, so let's talk a little bit. I kind of want to, because Ralph, you and I were talking a little bit before the show, where our impressions while watching the game live with the distractions of, you know, everything going on around us and the drinks and the food and just the hype of the game and the emotions that come with that, you don't always see everything on film the way it's actually happening. And so it's always good to go back and watch a second time. And as I said, the feeling, at least for me and for many around me, I think was, um, what the heck is Arvell Nelson doing? And Arvell really struggled for the team and was a big part of the lack of offense in the first half. And while obviously the quarterback is going to have some part to play in that, if you go back and watch the film, I would argue the point that it wasn't quite as much on Arvell's shoulders as some of us maybe unfairly were putting it initially.
Well, I
So
know. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, RC.
I know when they at first the announcers were talking before the game, they really were worried about Arnell. I mean, really, and
Mm-hmm.
they said, he's leading in the passes and this and that, and so their focus was maybe to get him off key, and they did it because he was not 100%. He really wasn't. And then with Prince, even though we'll probably talk about it later on, when Prince played here last in San Antonio, I actually saw him after the game and he was pissed off and he was not happy with the results. And then I was like, hey, Commanders for life. He turned, smiled, gave me a thumbs up, but he went back to like being really upset. And so I know he had something to prove and he proved it because he was all over the place on that field on Saturday.
Yeah, I think Orlando definitely came in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder over how they were beat here in San Antonio. I think they
Yep,
wanted to prove something. Obviously, Orlando has had an infusion of talent
true.
as well since we last saw them. But as Chase Risman says on the Facebook feed, what did the city of San Antonio do to the Predators? They beat the Force in the only shutout in AFL history. Very true. That was
Hmm.
50-0. They beat the Gunslingers in Arena Football's return to San Antonio. Now they potentially cost the Gunslingers the number one seed. All true. And your question, to answer the question, what did the city of San Antonio do to the Predators? Well, I think it might have a little something to do with what the Gunslingers did to the Predators when they were last in San Antonio. This was
Hmm.
their answer, and it was a response right from the get go, as Ralph said earlier. In the first, as soon as they got the ball, their first possession, they went right downfield, and Southwick hit Darius Prince for a touchdown, wide open. Uh, Missed the extra point that put them up 6-0. Then the San Antonio Gunslingers in their first possession, two incompletions to start. They went deep in the first play. They went for the deep ball right away for the quick strike, and it looked like a good ball, but just barely overthrown. Second one, I believe, was an incomplete to Kali Rashad, and then the Predators' defensive line turned the pressure on. Uh, we had two, I believe, consecutive strip sacks, both recovered.
That's
The
right.
first one was recovered by um,
Pierre.
Pierre, yes, Pierre, and then the second one recovered by the offensive line, but it was on fourth down.
Joshua.
So,
Yeah, it was on
yep,
Joshua Otis fell on that one.
yep, Otis, and then it was a turnover on downs, and then they Predators come back with an immediate response to go up with another touchdown uh, to Darius Prince once again.
Mhm. He was hot.
Yeah, yes, he did. And then they hit the extra point on that one, so they go up 13-0. So second possession, I have some notes here that I kind of want to go through the progression here, guys. So second possession, Arvell Nelson has a quick out to Phillip Barnett for 10 yards on first down. So he gets a completion there. The next play um, is an interception to number 0, Delvin Randall, who played the ball perfectly. He jumped in front of Phillip Barnett. Uh, Not a particularly well thrown ball, but give some credit to Delvin Randall on that. And then we have the second turnover of the game for the Gunslingers, this time on an interception. So that's where it kind of started, where we're looking at Arvell Nelson and going, "Uh-oh, here we go again,"
Right.
right? But the thing is, after that, once again, you have Southwick, who's able to just kind of pick apart the middle of the field. And so I think a lot of the blame has to go on whether it's the defensive game plan or the defense themselves, but the coverage seemed to be a little soft. Like they were just giving these guys a little bit too much room on defense. And Southwick was taking what the defense was giving him, and he was able to just go downfield. And at that point, they're down 2 touchdowns. So he's able to capitalize. And next thing you know, he hits back of the end zone. Uh, who was it? It was Darius Prince again for his third consecutive touchdown, and they're up 22-0 after hitting the deuce, which
Mhm.
just barely went over that crossbar. I know in the game live it looked like it was short, but if you go back and look at it, it actually cleared that crossbar by. I mean, it must have been an inch or two. What's your thoughts on that, Ralph?
Well, how nerdy do you want me to go? How deep do you want me to go in this?
Go
Because I'll
deep. Go deep.
Let's
on deep. Okay. So
Yeah.
talking about the two strips of Nelson on the first play, the Orlando defense played very, very aggressively on that first strip. Khalil was jammed on the line. The other two receivers were running a fly and a curl and weren't looking for the ball. By the time uh, Arvell was looking to the player for the curl, Booth Lloyd had worked his way around Mikhail Harvey, and that was the last time that happened. That Harvey got beat by Booth Lloyd. It wasn't anything else. On the second one, it was actually a bit of a broken play, uh, and Nelson was looking for Chisholm, and Chisholm was covered, and he before he got a chance to look at the backside receivers, Richard McKenzie just got a hand by Big Josh Otis and stripped the ball away on the backside. So it really was started in the secondary with a bit of a coverage, and the
Mm-hmm.
interception was kind of the same way. Very much a broken play. Barnett gets open, signals, gets the attention of Arvell Nelson, and starts to come back for the ball. But the ball was thrown to where he was, which was
Mm-hmm.
50-50 to the defender. And as you said, Devon Randall comes back faster. I mean, when the ball was thrown, it was a perfect triangle. Unfortunately, the DB and the receiver were equidistant from the ball. Again, math teacher, I kind of look at it that way. And the one that had already started moving was Randall. And because he had started moving to come back for the ball because he saw it, that's why he got in a position to pick it. So that's
Yep.
super nerdy. Looking at film very, very, very closely. Bit of research done because I knew I might have to talk about it today.
And I kind of thought the chippiness started a little bit early too.
Yeah, it started to get a little bit chippy right about towards the end of the first quarter.
Right.
I think the Gunslingers were a little shell shocked. Uh,
Frustrated.
yeah, they were frustrated. The defense, as Ralph said, of Orlando was to that point playing a really strong game, both on the line and in coverage. And Arvell Nelson seems to not be at his best when he's under pressure, under a lot of pressure. And I don't mean pressure as in no pocket, but I mean when there's a pressure of having to come back when you're behind, or having to make plays happen when the coverage is tight. He seems to struggle a little bit with his accuracy, like in the play that Ralph just described, where he's just trying to make something happen and the pressure is there, and having a hard time with it. And then when you put the pass rush and you figure that in with the strip sacks, it was a bad start for Arvell, but I don't think you can put it all on his shoulders. Once they're down 22-0, he's in a spot where everyone on the Gunslingers knows that they're going to have to score some points
Work.
pretty quick. Yeah, they got to work to get back in that game. So moving on, Arvell comes back in. Uh, First down, incomplete pass, but on the second down, he hits not Nico Thomas
Hmm.
um, in stride with a nice pass over the middle for a 20-yard gain, right? And then after that, on second down, he's sacked once again. There's the pass rush for a loss of 3 yards. Now, on that play, looking at it, I wondered if maybe he held on to it just a little bit too long, because Barnett was open, but Barnett was open almost in the same spot on that play where Randall made the interception, and Randall was there in coverage, and it made me wonder if maybe Arvell kind of thought twice about that,
A little
because of
leery.
what happened the time he went to that the previous time, and he ended up taking a sack. Third down, pass tipped incomplete, but then they had an offsides penalty. Orlando did. So you get 5 yards. So that puts you on 4th and 8. And he hits Barnett at that point on 4th and 8 for 11 yards over the middle, right between two defenders. Very nicely thrown ball. So you have first and goal from the 8-yard line there. And it seems like Arvell is kind of maybe starting to get a little bit of a rhythm going. The offense is moving. I mean, you're in scoring position. Um, so on 1st and 8, pass is incomplete. Now here's one thing. He throws this ball to the right wall. And yes, it's a little bit behind Pierre Turner. And Pierre Turner isn't exactly known for being a receiver, although he's caught some passes here and there. He's not a top target in the passing game. But still, looking at that play, and I love Pierre Turner, I don't think that was an uncatchable ball. I just think that Pierre he didn't turn to the ball and get the angle that he needed to make that catch. But it was definitely there. It was away from the defense. I don't necessarily think that was a poorly thrown ball. I just don't think Pierre made the correct adjustment to make that reception. So you go to the end of the first quarter down 22-0, but you're in scoring position,
Hmm.
right? So start of the second, uh, Arvell throws out of bounds over the end zone. Almost, I guess he's corner end zone, throwing the ball away. Again, I think that was a coverage thing. There was just nobody open. Third down, the pocket collapses. Nelson tucks the ball and does what he does best and runs and gets us all the way to the 2-yard line. So
Yep.
we're in scoring position now. Fourth and goal from the 2-yard line, and Coach Shaw calls a timeout, and we're wondering what the play is. And I remember Ralph looking over at you and saying, "This is, Pierre Turner afterburner time. It's your goal line offense. It's what's been your bread and butter in this type of position all year long." Yes, the Predators are probably expecting that as well, but you impose your will on the defense. You don't bend to what the defense is doing. At least that's my point of view. Coach Shaw decides to do something a little bit different, I guess, and maybe catch the defense
Off
off
guard.
uh, off guard, and goes for a pass play. Once again, Arvell maybe holds the ball just a little bit too long. He's got two receivers standing in the same spot, Khalil Rashad and I think it was Chisholm. and he throws it high. Both defensive backs are there, so it's kind of a jump ball, and he gets the ball to where it hits Chisholm's hand, but he doesn't bring it in. And Chisholm is normally the type of guy, we've talked about it with Spider-Man, where he'll get his hand and
Mhm.
get those tough catches. So Arvell put it under a tight situation, a bad situation. He put the ball exactly where it needed to be to give them a chance to score. Now, I would rather have been a keeper in that situation with Pierre Turner behind him, pushing him into the end zone, but I'm not calling the plays. For some reason, Coach saw something, and it might have been because of the how strong and stout that defensive line had been looking to this point. But a golden opportunity right there missed, and it's a turnover on downs instead of getting the score when you're 2 yards out. What was your take on that possession, Ralph?
Well, I would disagree. I think the ball was thrown too far behind Turner. Turner was turned uh, the wrong way to come back for it, and that was just unfortunate because that was an opportunity on that fourth down, up to point at the final fourth down. The previous fourth down was awarded only because of a penalty. The Gunslingers hadn't earned it. And on this last play, the Gunslingers didn't get the touchdown either. So you're 0 for 2 on fourth down and 0 for 3 because in that first possession, you're out. So something's wrong right there when you cannot convert on a single fourth down and you're
Mhm.
relying on penalties. Add that to the interception. All of this together, and at that last incompletion, you see Nelson swing his hand in absolute disgust and beat
Yep.
himself on the chest. Arvell's a leader, and
Yes, he
he
is.
takes it very personally when his performance is not helping the team because he knows the offense runs through his hands and he knows what he's capable of. The two strips, the interception, and now this. I don't think there's physically anything wrong with Arvell, but at that point, his head was probably in a very dark, bad place. Now he
Yeah.
comes back out on the next and puts together a 5 play drive, and on fourth down they do get Juice Robinson open and finally
Yes.
break the shutout.
Finally break the shutout. But before that, just to mention real quickly, again, to kind of put where my perspective is, where I'm kind of my opinion, and Ralph and I kind of think the same thing, but have a difference of opinion on
The
the
why.
the why.
We agree on what?
Yeah. The defense once again starts to maybe give you a little bit of hope. They got after a couple of short gains and a couple of penalties. They had the Predators on a fourth and long from
Yep.
their own 13-yard line. And
Alexander had the sack on third
mhm,
down, and it was fourth down coming up, and all we needed was a stop on fourth down.
yep, fourth
That
and
would have kept it
13.
20. It would have kept it at 22 points, 3 scores, and then you only got to claw back one possession in the second half if you're able to get that because you get the ball to start the second half.
Yep.
But that's not how it went.
Well, I know that
Nope.
like the first part of the game, us as fans, we kind of were quiet. We didn't have a whole lot to cheer about, right? There was a lot of come on, Gunslingers. Second
Yeah.
quarter, I felt like we were kind of getting in the groove. There was things we would cheer about, then we go, oh, like our
Yeah.
the wind came out of our sails. I just wish I know football is a game of inches, and if maybe Spidey went a little bit further out, he could have caught that. And so it just seemed like by inches we were missing stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, RC. So there seemed to be a little bit of life in the Gunslingers, particularly on offense, and then on defense on that one possession where we had them on fourth and long, where you're right there where something positive is about to happen if they can just make a play and then nothing. And
Right.
so, yeah, disappointment. And the disappointment went all the way from Orlando and it permeated back into
Sure
Texas
did.
to the crowd that was there witnessing this on the live stream at Alamo Beer Company. And on that fourth down, they give up the long reception to, once again, Darius Prince
Right?
all the way to the Gunslingers 8-yard line. So that's not a good formula, Ralph, right? When you're not converting on fourth downs and you're giving up on defense, you're giving up fourth down conversions to the opposing offense. That is a formula for disaster, and that's what we were witnessing.
Yeah, and the defense was fired up at that point. They knew that things had gone very, very badly, and they were kind of angry, or should we say, put out at
Mm-hmm.
that point, to use a more family friendly version of it, uh, and wanted to get a stop there. They really, really did.
Mm-hmm.
And despite their best efforts, the league offensive player of the year from last year finds his way open. Southwick connects with him, makes it look easy, and it just a bit of a heartbreak at that point. It's like, can we even get a stop? And in the first half, well, they did get one, but it was at the end, and it didn't really matter.
Didn't matter. Yeah, yeah. So at that point, it was 29-0 after that ensuing score, because they scored off of that fourth down conversion to, again, a wide open receiver.
Hmm.
I have it here. It was Southwick hitting number 22 Caleb Walls, who was wide open on the right wall, all by himself, and just kind of danced into the end zone down the sideline and went in untouched. So the defense definitely not helping out the offense and Arvell Nelson in this situation, where they're just kind of allowing that hole to get bigger and bigger. Um, and the rest of the first half, we get the next possession. Arvell again, kind of in a rhythm, hits some wide open receivers, and then eventually finds Juice Robinson in the end zone. And then the ensuing possession probably was the right call. I would say it was definitely the right call. It was just not executed. The squib kick um, by Drew Pearson, and
Yeah.
the Predators were able to recover that and then have the ball deep in Gunslinger territory. And then something really interesting happened after that to end to end the half. So the Predators have the ball at the Gunslingers 18 after recovering that squib kick. And then after that, they run 4 consecutive run plays.
Hmm.
Obviously, trying to run down the clock, because there was a little over 3 minutes left in the first half when they recovered that kickoff. And then they run 4 consecutive run plays, and turn the ball over on downs. They get all the way to the 2-yard line and then throw it incomplete with 3 seconds left. Just enough time for a desperation last play by the Gunslingers, which didn't result in actually resulted in a fumble, with Kali Rashad trying to make a play and lateraling the ball to a Gunslinger player that wasn't there. Predators recovered and time expired. But
Mhm.
those 4 run plays to run down the clock, Gunslingers did not call a single timeout. They did not seem to care about having another opportunity for some reason, if they could make that defensive stop, um, to try and score once again in the first half, knowing that they'd get the ball first in the second half, being that Orlando got the ball to start the game. What's your guys' opinion on that? No timeouts called
Well,
during that entire 3-minute period to end the
I
half.
I kind of felt that and this is just my opinion, they kind of gave up and we're already thinking, okay, this first half is done. Let's start thinking about the second half. And they didn't play with the same enthusiasm, aggressiveness that I think they needed. I didn't think that they were like, okay, well, this first half is done. We'll go into halftime and then we'll come back better. But I think they missed opportunities there.
I would agree with you, RC. The the spillover effect. Coach Shaw is watching Arvell Nelson, effectively, if there was such a thing, the franchise player or one of the potential franchise players of the team, go in the first 3 possessions 2 for 11 on passing. Okay, so he looked a little better, 3, 4, 5 on the next drive. Now he's up to 5 for 16. That's below a third. who wouldn't want this half to be over at that point? And
Exactly.
so there's a bit of a spillover there that perhaps they didn't see the opportunity, but the gunslinger offense got rocked and shocked. They only scored on one of five possessions in the first half, finished 5 for 11 in the second, which we'll get to. But I mean, who wouldn't want that sucker to be over one way or the other?
Right. I agree. I agree.
But was it a missed opportunity? Potentially. The window was very narrow in any case. And at least we got the stop, and they didn't score on the Predators. They were stopped on downs on their final possession of the first half.
Yeah, so Arvell Nelson in the first half, you talk about he only played in the first half, was 7 completions with 11 incompletes. So total 18 attempts. That's a percentage of
Not
just
good.
under 39%, which, as RC mentioned, is not good. We talked about that, Ralph, in the first half as that was going, and you said the bare minimum for QB completion percentage that you want to see for your quarterback is what?
50%. 50% is adequate in this league to win. You have good enough receivers. You complete 2 passes, that's good enough for a first down. You complete 2 more passes, you get a run, that's another first down. You don't have to throw it to the end zone. And the Gunslingers kind of got away from that game plan. I guess they thought they could, but that's all you need. But if you've got somebody throwing around a 33, anything that starts with a 3, that's not going to work. And that's what Coach Shaw was looking at, was an abysmal performance. Arvell Nelson was wounded at that point in pride. And yeah, let's go to the locker room. Let's reset and figure out what's going on and come out and do better.
Yep. Quentin Humphrey, Coach Q, as I call him, agrees that sometimes you just have to allow the first half to end and come together at half and come back better, like RC said. So it's more of a get that half over with, get into the locker room, go back to the drawing board, kind of figure out what adjustments you're going to make, and hope, as Phillip likes to say, that you can do to the other team in the second half what they did to you in the first half. That's one of the things he says he maintains he really likes about football is no matter how bad it is at halftime, you can always go back and do the same thing to them that they did to you.
That's true.
And it's hard to do though.
Yeah, it is.
Being down 3, they ended up down 2 with the final stop possessions. But historically,
It's hard.
I believe the biggest comeback was 22 points. And when it got to 29-0, I'm keeping my mouth shut at the watch party saying if the Gunslingers were able to come back from this, it would be a historical comeback and a historical collapse by the Predators. So if we're wishing for something that never has happened before, and that's just not a great way to start your second half.
That's true.
Or in this case, start the second quarter.
Right. Hoping for some kind of historic comeback is not the position you ever want to be in when you're rooting for your team. But unfortunately, that's the position that we were in going into halftime. So Coach Shaw makes some adjustments at the half. And one of those adjustments, were you surprised? Were you guys surprised to see Robert Kent Jr. under center to start the second half?
Well, before we get into the second half, I just want to make a comment.
Okay.
And it has to do with the cheerleaders. Okay. So the cheerleaders looked like they were wearing a sports bra. Okay. Not a classy move. So I want to give kudos to our 6-shooters because we always look classy. I love our uniforms. I love the outfits that we have. I like our moves. And I just want to say the Predator, whatever they call those cheerleaders, they need to step up their uniform because it looked like just they were wearing a sports bra. That's it. Now we can go to the third quarter.
Yeah, Jim comes on and corrects me with the correct point total, and I should have known that. I was gonna say 19, but I lost confidence in me.
That's okay.
Maybe that's what happened to Arvell. I don't know.
Never lose confidence in yourself. But you're right. It did appear that the Predators defense was able to get into his head
Right.
in that first half. And maybe that's what Coach Shaw saw and decided to say, hey, this night isn't going the way we want it to. It's not your night, and it's time to sit, and we'll go with the Duke,
Mhm.
uh, Robert Kent Jr., and bring him in and see what he can do for us in the second half. Um, and a lot of the fans were excited to see, and I don't blame them because
Right.
there's the attachment to last season, and what Kent Jr. did for us last season. He was awesome as a
Amazing.
starting quarterback. Yeah, and the Gunslingers just barely missed the playoffs, and they were a team, as we've said many times before, nobody wanted to play come the end of the season. We just ran out of games, but he comes out and struggles a little bit too, Ralph. Right? I mean, it's better, but I mean, what can you expect even from a quarterback as great as Robert Kent Jr.? You throw him out at halftime under center when he's not taking most of the reps in practice,
Right.
and just kind of getting accustomed to the offense. A recent join to the team. It's only been a couple of weeks. Um, you're asking a lot of him to come out there and make a historical comeback in the second half, right?
It would have been a bit, and that's actually not Robert Kent's forte. That's not his role. Robert Kent is a very consistent, very calm, tough guy who will lead you to a win. And that is, I described him in the press release as workmanlike because that's what he is. He comes in, it's calm, he does a job. And if he's on, and he usually is, it's a pretty good performance. It's pretty hard to meet. He led the offense to 26 points in the second half. If he had 26 points in the first half, that's 52 points. That is what Orlando had. My
That's a
only,
W.
not my, well, it would have been closer.
Closer. That's true.
It would have been closer, but 3 turnovers will doom anyone. I will only disagree with Coach Q. He makes a point about making it that in arena it's possible to come back. Yeah, but three turnovers right at the start, 3 possession deficit, and they gave it back on the second drive with Robert Kent on the interception, and that brought it back to 3. And just try without time.
Mm.
Without the time, you just can't come back. It is tough, and that's why 19 points is the biggest comeback that or any biggest deficit that any team has overcome that actually won the game. Ironically, West Texas scored more than that on us in that first game at home that was nearly a disaster.
Right. Yeah. To make a comeback, I mean, the bottom line comes down to stops,
Right.
and and it's hard to stop any team in this game because of the way the game is very leaned toward the offensive side of the ball, as far as the rules and how the game is constructed. So you don't see a whole lot of stops, and when you're down 3 scores going into the second half, um, that's a tall order. So going into the second half, we were still cheering for our team, but we kind of saw the writing on the wall and figured what was coming. We're just watching it unfold before us. And as you said, Robert Kent's able to get 26 points in the second half. Did throw a couple of interceptions. Um, but that's not something that he hasn't done in the past. He'll get you one or two, maybe 2 interceptions a game, even as a starter. We've seen that, but he'll make a lot of great plays offensively as well. So, like you said, that's not his game as far as coming back from such a large deficit like that. Um, I like to think, just jokingly, I have it here for those of you watching on Facebook. I have it on my subtitle under my name. It said, "We forgot the mud," and we came out to play the Orlando Predators. The Predators were gunning for us. The Gunslingers wore their prey that night. And anybody who's a fan of the Predators, the TV series, they know how Arnold was able to beat the Predator in that first movie. He's able to disguise himself from the infrared view of the Predator in his
Right.
helmet by covering himself in mud. And maybe the Gunslingers just needed to be a little more dirty, not in the bad sense of the word, but like Pops likes to say, I need some nasty. Didn't see enough of the nasty on defense, I think, um, in this game right off the bat. So I'm standing by that phrase right there. We forgot the mud, and
I like it.
Arvell Nelson kind of takes the fall for that and takes a lot of the blame. But
He's the
I
easy
don't.
guy to blame.
Yeah.
It's so easy. I mean, we were there at the watch party, and we were like, "What the heck is wrong with Arvell?" Well, it's not all Arvell.
Yeah,
But we go back and we look at it calm, what I call my hangover watch the next day after a loss. I'm not feeling too good, but I got to put myself through this. So I watched the film again and I started seeing things. And then I go to actual film with that the coaches get to work with. And I look at that and go, oh, I'm seeing what went on there. It wasn't the ball just fell out of his hands. It was definitely stripped out of his hands. Oh, there was good coverage downfield, perhaps even a
mm-hmm.
little bit of too good coverage downfield. Oh, they're jamming. Oh, they're doing this. Oh, we're doing that. And by the time somebody was open, I was watching the receivers. I'd look back and the ball had already been stripped. There literally was nothing else he could have done except decide before the receivers even had run their route that screw it, I'm just going to run.
Yeah, and I like you watching that game, watching the replay. You know, I saw receivers not getting open. You know, credit the defense, but also that's on the receivers too to get open and get open sooner. And I saw receivers just not catching those 50-50 balls or those balls that were placed where they could possibly, you know, make that catch and on different circumstances would make those catches, and they just weren't making them on this night. And then just Arvell Nelson being put in a very, very difficult situation because the Gunslingers defensively weren't able to answer the call when they needed to in this particular game and make the stops when they had to and really needed them.
You know, when this reminds me of when you're watching a movie and them talking, the dialogue is a little bit slower than what you're actually seeing. That's what it reminded me of. Like the gunslingers were just on slow-mo mode or something. They just weren't quick enough. They just weren't there at the right timing. Timing was off. Maybe like you said, get a little nasty. It was just like that. Like when you're watching a movie and it's just not connecting, that's what I felt like.
Yeah, Quentin Humphrey, Coach Q says, I will say going forward, put that chip back on your shoulder, that you have a target on your back and play for 4 quarters. Yes, mistakes were made, but this can make a team stronger to want to fight harder.
That's true.
100% agree with that. We got to put this game behind us.
It's true.
You know, the Gunslingers have the luxury of having an off week this week, a bye week,
Right.
to prepare for what's next, look at the film, make adjustments, fix some things, decide what they want to do at quarterback. That's a question now. Um, I don't. If it's me, I'm not. I don't think Arvell Nelson played himself out of his job, in my opinion. Just to
No, no.
No, I don't think
come
so.
right out and say it. I don't think so. Yeah, he had a bad game, but I mean, he just came off of an outstanding game where, as Ralph mentioned, he was player of the week.
Hmm.
And I think the Orlando Predators had a very good game plan. The defense played very well and put him in uncomfortable situations. The Gunslingers defense didn't come through when they needed to, and the receivers at some points it was the line, the receivers. I don't think Arvell Nelson had the help that he needed to get this team back in the game. So Coach Shaw makes the adjustment at halftime and brings in Robert Kent Jr. And what a luxury to have a guy like that on your bench.
That's
But
true.
I don't think at this point you go to that permanently, move to that. But I mean that's going to be Coach Shaw's decision, and he's got a week or 2 weeks to mull that over, or actually a week because you're gonna have to practice for the following game with your QB1 taking reps. But at this point, if anybody's asking the question, is Kent Jr. the guy now moving forward? I don't believe so.
I don't either. What do you think, Ralph?
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I did want to take on. Please put up Mike Tackett's comments. Uh, let people read that.
It says of all eligible passers, NAL QB accuracy range from 64.7% to 58.4%, with an average of 60.6% completion percentage. To say a 50% completion percentage is acceptable at any level of football in today's game is asinine, especially in an indoor league. Shots
Okay.
fired, Mike.
Bang, bang. Oh, my gosh.
And that's fine because my response to that is it is still 50% in my mind because if you don't have turnovers, all you need is 50%. Now, to say that the average is at 60, yeah, it probably is. Kent finished 9 for 17, which is above 50%. And not looking at the percentages, I'm looking at a yardstick measurement to say that bare minimum, you got to be above or at to have a chance to win the game. So I'd agree with you that anything below 50%, 50% bare minimum, fair wins, no turnovers, and you get rushing yards when you need rushing yards is enough against a team that's taking the ball away from you, against a team that is playing better than you. No, it won't be enough. But I look at a lot of these games that I'm seeing, and no, the quarterbacks aren't throwing at 50%. But their overall numbers, you've got throws in garbage time. You've got throws when it doesn't matter. In the heat of the competition, really, you're looking at 50% as the floor, 2/3. You get above 66%, you're good. You get to 75% in that game. That's the other thing about the stats. Those are probably aggregate for a season stats, and I don't disagree with them. But I'm talking about in that game. You get to 75%, you're on fire.
Right.
So in a game, in one single game, all things considered, the minimum output from your quarterback has to be a 50% to have a chance to win. So asinine looking at numbers versus a year, sure, I'll take it. We can agree to disagree. But I'm looking at what I've been seeing, and I'm the new guy. I've only been doing this for a couple years, and I get a sense that Mike Tackett's been doing a lot longer, and so he comes off with a very, very strong opinion. And when I get to his point in experience, I might just agree with him. I might say that was a pretty asinine thing to say, Ralph.
Well,
I wouldn't go so far to say asinine, though.
This is social media.
Oh, this is
sarcastic and hyperbolic all the time.
we've got thick skin on this this in this arena. You have to.
That's true.
But to make your point, Ralph, I don't know that you're necessarily disagreeing with what Mike Tackett says, as maybe he misunderstood what you were saying as what's acceptable. That being the baseline, the floor, as you said. You're not happy when your quarterback is completing 50%. That's not what's happy, but you're right. That's the bare minimum of what you need to win a game, to have a shot at winning a game. If your quarterback's if he's throwing below 50%, you virtually have no shot, especially if you're turning the ball over. And then he comes out and says, in this comment here, where he's basically agreeing with all of us, that Nelson is the leader in both rushing and passing yards and rushing passing TDs. He's my MVP.
Well, he's mine too.
For the year. Yeah, for the year, and right now his numbers are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
But he was 2 for 11 in the first 3 possessions. That's not a typical Arvell Nelson performance. Not even close.
True.
And so in that game, I would be happy. I would have been happy if he had a 50% passing rate rather than being 2 for 11.
Right, right. And and Arvell Nelson by far and away leads the NAL in rushing
Oh
touchdowns.
yeah.
He does.
I don't know that he leads in passing yards as Mike claims. I think
I think
that
I
may
heard he had
not
200
be
yards.
100% accurate, but he's up there.
Inside the walls is bailing us out as usual.
Yeah. Oh, there he goes. Yeah, inside the wall says he's second in passing yards, passing TDs behind Castronova. Castronova's having a phenomenal season. And that's why I say uh, Arvell Nelson is in the conversation for MVP. But right now, if you uh, look at if you had a vote, it's hard to vote against Castronova in the performance he's had right now up to this point in Jacksonville. But that being said, Arvell Nelson, even by the admission of the Predators broadcast, is
Hmm.
they called him the most dangerous player in the NAL,
Yes.
and he's he's deserving of a title like that. Especially from opposition. And the Predators were just ready. They were ready for this game, and the Gunslingers weren't as ready as they thought, or as we thought and hoped, and it turned into a loss. But at 8-2, they're still in first place. It's a technicality because they're in first place by half game because Jacksonville at 7-1 has to catch up to the Gunslingers game wise. Once they do, with the records being equal, they will hold the tiebreaker if they have a like record because of point differential in the head to head. But the schedule ahead, the Gunslingers, as we said before, looking forward, they now have a bye week to kind of look at film, lick their wounds, decide what they're going to do moving forward at the quarterback situation. I'd be shocked if it's not Arvell under center again. Um, and then they have to get ready for the next away game, which is going to be another tough game at Carolina against the Cobras.
Right.
Um, in the meantime, Jacksonville uh, next week, they're on the road, or are they at home? Next week they are
On the
nope,
road.
they're on the road against the very same Predators team that we just played, and that's going to be an interesting game because they are rivals, in-state rivals, and they always play each other tough. And right now, the Predators are on a roll, and so we're gonna go from not being Predator fans this past week to probably rooting for them this coming
I
weekend.
know.
While we're sitting at home, no Gunslingers game to watch. That's going to be a game to watch there. It's going to be a great game.
Well,
And
we also have to be fans of West Texas
yes,
because if West Texas hangs a loss on the Carolina Cobras at home in Odessa, that secures the number two seed for the playoffs, and that guarantees San Antonio a home playoff game.
Yeah. And,
mhm.
just to remind all of the Gunslinger fans, we're also fans of the NAL. So even if we're not playing this week, we still need to watch these games. The outcome can make a difference. And so, watch them on TV, watch them live, and it's good football. It's good football. And we really need to pay attention to the outcome.
That's very good football, and it's an exciting game. I mean, it's an explosive game. A blink and you're going to miss something. And there's so many creative ways to score points and make plays in this game. I don't know how anybody can watch this game and understand the rules and not have a lot of fun with it. So, um, unfortunately, we don't get a chance to watch a home game until the 2 weeks from now when the Gunslingers will be back home for their final game against the same Carolina Cobras on July 22nd, and then finish off the season on their last bye week, which is a good thing, I think, having the bye week going into the
Get
playoffs where
ready.
they can kind of get ready and get healthy if they have anybody that needs to kind of recover a little bit from the violent sport that they play. Um, but for those of you that don't know or have noticed and looked on the schedule, because this tight race between the Gunslingers and the Jacksonville Sharks, we're going to be keeping tabs on how the other team is doing. to see who's going to go in with that number one seed and hold home field advantage and hopefully host the championship game in early August. Uh, you may have noticed that the Jacksonville Sharks have 4 games left on their schedule, while the Gunslingers only have the 2 that we've talked about. So that leaves Jacksonville with a total of 13 games because they're 1 game behind us as far as games played. Um, and the San Antonio Gunslingers at the end of the season will have only played 12. Advantage or disadvantage, or what do you think of that, Ralph?
I like it because the front end of the Gunslingers schedule was absolute hell. You start out by playing the team that was the runner up in the previous year championship. Then you go to play the number 3 team again at that location. And then you go to play the defending champion in their location. We didn't think we would be 3 and 0 at that point. Now on the back end of the schedule, the back 3, now 2 games, having 2 buys there, and we are hanging on for the time being. And it's up to, if Jacksonville takes a loss, we're back in ahead, and they may, if we take care of business, we remain number 1. But we no longer control our destiny. That was the significance of this loss. We are now depending on others to do things to settle our fate. That's why we're going to be Orlando fans, and that's why we are going to be Warbirds fans. And inside the walls, again, I'm pretty sure that's Jim comes on and says, home teams, by the way, are 12 and 2 in the playoffs. And that doesn't distinguish between rounds. So,
Yeah, that's a significant advantage, to say the least. Um, and you're right. So now the Gunslingers, as a result of this game, no longer in the driver's seat.
Right.
But it's not the end of the world. I mean, if I had told you at the beginning of the season, especially with that stretch, that road stretch to start the season that Ralph was talking about, if
It
I
was
had
rough.
told you that after 10 games, the Gunslingers will hold a record of 8-2 at the beginning of the season, I don't think a single Gunslingers fan would not be elated with that.
Right.
Would be excited to know that we were going to be 8-2 after 10 games into the NAL season. So I guess now we just have to put on our Predator hats to be some Orlando fans over this weekend. As you said, Ralph, Jacksonville only has to lose 1 game, and Gunslingers are right back into the driver's seat with only 2 games to play, which means less opportunity to take another loss, right? Um, and if they take care of business, 1 away game, 1 home game, I like those odds. And Phillip, as he said last week in the show, he likes the odds of Jacksonville dropping at least one of their games to the Predators, who they play twice in their last 4 games. And after watching the Predators and how they handled the Gunslingers, and you know, I can't argue with that thinking. So as hard as it is to do after this week, Gunslinger fans have to be somewhat Predator fans over the next couple of weeks, and then just remember, if we happen to play them again to in the playoffs, because that's the only time we'll play the Predators again this season, we don't forget the mud.
That's right. Get the mud. And I know, Leo, you and I were talking about how the first place team would have to play the third place team, and possibly the second place team play the fourth. Did you want to talk about
No,
that, or no? Is that right or wrong?
it's first. The top seed first will play the bottom seed, the fourth, and then
Oh,
second
okay.
will play third.
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
Yep.
that's relevant to that stat, the 12 and 2 stat for home teams. You could fairly assume that the number 1 team is almost always going to beat the number 4 team, and that usually happens. But when you look at the 2-3, clearly those 2 teams are closer to each other. You might think that's a 50-50 ball. If that was the case, it wouldn't be 12 and 2. It would be a different set of numbers. The home field in the playoffs matters a lot. That's why we're talking about it. That's why it's so important. Why? Bunch of reasons, but visiting teams don't have traveling fans.
Yep. And the home field advantage becomes huge because
Exactly.
it's not necessarily a huge factor when there's a big disparity between the two teams that are playing. But honestly, if you're looking at the teams in the NAL right now, the disparity is not that big from top to bottom.
Yeah,
And,
who's the
or
doormat?
yeah,
Who's the quote worst team? Who's who's 1-13? Who's going to finish 1-13? There is nobody in
Right.
this
no,
league.
yep,
There's nobody in this league that I don't think could uh, be considered a bad team. And I'll go on record now. Look out for the Warbirds next year. But
yes,
look out next week because the next two games, Jacksonville, Orlando, are just going to be absolute fireworks. Absolute freaking fireworks because Jacksonville's hungry, looking to avenge the loss. Orlando's hungry. They're looking to seal their fate as being the number 4 team. And whoever ends up being the number 1 has to play Orlando again. For us, yikes. And, it could be, yeah, it could be very difficult for Jacksonville to beat a team 3 times. Right. Inside the walls has it again.
Well, raise your hand if you'd be willing to travel for the playoffs. I know I would.
well, I mean, you're looking at if it's Orlando, then it would be in Florida. If it's the Warbirds, then it's in Texas, but it's a drive. Texas is a big state, but you could at least drive it
Right.
realistically. But if it's Orlando, then you have to hop on a plane. I don't assume anybody's going to drive all the way to Orlando for an arena football game. Maybe,
You might.
uh,
It's
but
still during
that
the
would be
summer,
nice if the
you know?
Gunslinger fans can travel. That would be something. Um, I don't know though. Florida's a big ask.
Well, it's still the summer. Kids are still out of school. You can still use some vacation time.
That it is right now. So again, Inside the Walls podcast chiming in. They just said a little while ago it's 1 and 2 seeds are 4-1 in the first round. As of right now, it's Orlando at San Antonio because
Mhm.
Orlando is 4, San Antonio is 1, and Carolina at Jacksonville. Although that 1 and 2 seed is going to flip flop over the next few weeks because of
The
the
games.
the inequality of the games between the two teams. So it's definitely going to be an interesting last couple of weeks of the season as the Gunslingers get ready to wind down and prepare for the playoffs. They're in the playoffs no matter what. They could lose out, which they won't, but they could lose out the last 2 games and they're still in the playoffs. They clinched that a couple of weeks ago, the first team to clinch playoff berth.
True.
So so we're looking forward. Not the end of the world after this loss. It hurt. It definitely was not what we were hoping for when we went to Alamo Beer for that watch party. Again, Inside the Walls podcast, Gunslingers can do no worse than third. But we don't want to do third because third means no home game.
Right. You want to
So,
push the home game.
yes. Yes. Oh, and to answer your question, RC, about traveling, Coach Q, get a party bus, Leonardo Yamas. I would love to do that.
I am
Um,
all aboard for that one.
Now that would be awesome. Um, I don't know who would be able to put that together or who could put the time in to look into something like that, but maybe that's something we can look at and figure out. That would definitely be fun. Um, and if we hear anything about that, then we'll definitely talk about that on the show and let the
For
fans
sure.
know to see who wants to get in on that and be involved. Heidi Ludwig Higgins already chiming in. She says, "I'm in."
I'm in, Heidi. Come on, girl. We
And
got to do this.
Johnny Salazar, let's do it, Leo.
Let's do it.
We will look into it. Coach Q saying he's going to look into it for Lolis. Look what you started, Lolis. Look what you started. Or actually, no, it was Coach Q that started it. It's just that Lolis agreed. And of course, if Lolis agrees, then I have to agree.
Then you're in.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
No choice.
I have no choice in the matter. But I would totally be down if we get something
You know who
something
we
like
need to
that.
ask is Jorge Mata. He kind of did something like that for the Brahmas. So if we can do it for the Brahmas, we can do it for the Gunslingers. We just need
Yeah,
the right connections.
yep. We got to get look into it, get on the horn, and yeah, Jorge might be a good resource for that for sure. So that's everything going on in the league and on the field and up to this weekend. Let's talk about some things. I mean, we have the holiday coming up uh, tomorrow, 4th of July, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
tomorrow. So happy 4th to everybody. Happy Independence Day. But the San Antonio Gunslingers announced something today on their Facebook page about an event. The first I saw of it was earlier today. I don't know that they had previously made an announcement. They're probably more concerned with a game that they had to play over in the state of Florida.
Right.
Um, but they call it the 4th of July. I like this red, white, and boom parade,
Love
which
it.
is, yes, very cool name for this event. Happening at 10 a.m. tomorrow in
That's right.
Lavernia. They mentioned they're going to have a meet and greet after the parade, which they will
Mhm.
be in the parade, at the Den Restaurant in Lavernia until 1 p.m. So this event goes from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you Gunslingers posse, anybody out there, members of that posse, the Gunslingers fans, can make it to that event, that should be pretty cool. You know that any party the Gunslingers throw, it's going to be a spectacle and it's going to be fun. I think I read something on there that they're going to have opportunities for some tickets for
Yes.
the last home game. But yeah, definitely sounds like a worthwhile event if you have availability in the morning to make it out there. Lavernia's, what is that, about a 30-minute drive outside of San Antonio?
35.
Somewhere's
Yeah,
about
around
there.
there. Hmm.
Isn't
Yeah,
everything 30 minutes away from everything else?
yeah, that's how we do things here in South Texas. Everything's 30 minutes away.
About
But
30 minutes.
definitely sounds like an event that would be worthwhile to attend if you're able to make it. I know it's a holiday and it's a last minute type announcement. But if you have time prior to 1 p.m., most of the 4th of July festivities, at least the big ones here in San Antonio, don't start until well into the evening hours
After
for
9 p.m.
fireworks and stuff like that. But yeah, that definitely sounds like something that would be very cool
I'm
to
going.
attend. RC is going. You're gonna
That's
be.
right.
You have plans made out there, Ralph?
I am considering it now, but I will say this: it is an event by the city of Lavernia. It's not just the gunslingers involved, so there's going to be a lot of activities out there.
Yes.
Not just the potential to meet and greet your San Antonio gunslingers.
Right. There is a lot going on. It is a big holiday that at least I know the city of San Antonio goes hard for the 4th of July with their events and their fireworks. I myself won't be able to make it. We're hosting here at the house with family and friends that are coming over. I live just a couple of blocks walking distance away from Woodlawn Lake, and there's always a really big fireworks show at Woodlawn Lake that starts at 8 o'clock. The traffic around here, the parking, I mean, it gets pretty crazy and pretty congested. So it's hard to get in or out in the starting the late afternoon hours. So we have people coming over tomorrow, starting around noon, 1 o'clock,
Hmm.
planning to be here, and we're just going to cook out and hang out for the day, and then walk over for the fireworks. So that makes it not possible for me to make it out to Lavernia myself. But if I could, I definitely would. I'd be interested to see what a gunslingers parade looks like. So RC, if you're going, definitely take pictures that we
I
can
will.
post on the Facebook page and share with the fans that can't make it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
Um,
super excited about it. We're planning on getting there early, Francesca and I, and my niece Angie, and we're gonna help out as much as we can with the parade. Maybe be in it. Who knows? Get some
oh,
autographs. Who knows? You never know.
And also, I've heard that the six shooters will be there, and they're kind
Those
of
are my girls.
segue to RC to talk about another way you have young women to interact with the six shooters.
Yeah. So on Saturday, July 15th, which is coming up real quick, from 10 a.m. to 1:30. They are having the San Antonio Six Shooters are having a youth dance and cheer camp. And so that's gonna be, and the show off begins at 2 p.m. So that's an opportunity if you have any young girls or young boys, who are interested in cheer, that would be great. They have different age groups. So if you're thinking, "Oh, my child is too young or too old," I'm gonna give you a list of the age groups. So, the petite is ages 4 to 6, elementary school age from 7 to 10, middle school ages 11 to 13, and high school ages 14 to 18. I'm sorry, yeah, 18. So just know that your child, your niece, your nephew, your grandchild, your daughter, your son, they're not too young and not too old to participate. It's going to be at St. Gerard's Athletic Center, which is located on your Bramples, and it's going to include a cheer camp shirt, a pizza party, crafting games, and photos with the Six Shooters team. So the cost is $100 per child, but I do know that the Smokin Guns podcast, we're ready and willing to sponsor any child who wants to participate. They just have to send us an email, send us a message, and we'll be happy, so happy to support one of our youth to attend the camp for $100.
Yes, message the show, get in touch with us, reach out to us and in Facebook or Messenger or email us, and we will definitely reach out to the Gunslingers people and get that taken care of. If you have someone that is interested in being part of this cheer camp, as RC said, they've got all the age groups covered, which is
Yep.
awesome. So uh, let us know. Reach out to us. We've thrown this out there a couple of times for some opportunities. It's like free money that people just aren't able to take, I guess. But share that out, share it with people you may know, whether it's a neighbor or a friend or coworker. uh, there's still time to get involved in this if you know someone with a little cheerleader, and the podcast is more than happy to help out, to sponsor one interested young lady or young man person that's interested in this cheer camp. We'd love to help you guys out.
They didn't specify male or female, so I'm just inviting both.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not.
Yep.
So, is there anything else going on off the field that you guys wanted to mention or talk about? We don't have Phillip on the show this week. He has a prior um, uh, engagement or commitment with his ministry, a youth camp that he's running this week, so he could not be on the show. Our show normally runs at least 2 hours because Philip loves to
Because
hear
Philip loves
himself
to
talk.
talk.
We will not be going that late today. So we're kind of winding things down here. Uh, but we definitely excited about the next couple of weeks. We don't have a Gunslingers game this coming weekend, like we mentioned, but every one of you should be watching the NAL this weekend. There are two very
Right.
important games that have playoff implications, and I hate to say it, but go Predators and go
Ugh.
Birds. But yeah, Ralph, anything you wanted to, as we're winding down, kind of mention or tell the fans?
No, I would just say that, like Pierre Turner characterized the Gunslingers at the beginning of this season, they're efficient. And so this show tonight is efficient. We have covered the ground without using all the time normally consumed by the show. It's just,
So, are we normally inefficient? No, no,
you
no.
asked me to say something here at the end.
There you go. No,
The extra ad, and that was my attempt at kind of riffing here for the extra ad to pass it off to Leo.
perfect. No,
And
that's
thank you, Ralph, for stepping in and stepping up
good
for when
stuff.
I
Yes,
was
we thank
absent
you.
out last week, and now Philip. So thank you, really.
We
And
thank you
so
very
far,
much.
my camera has not failed as it has in my last two appearances on the show. Now, having said that, it'll cut out at any moment.
Of course, any minute.
You jinxed yourself. Yeah, you're definitely, I think, gonna find yourself on more shows. You're gonna be somewhat of a celebrity on all these podcasts and live shows around covering local football and NAL football because of the great insight and attention to detail that you have and the great input that you have. We thank you very much for sharing with us. Ralph Judkins, I like to call his comments, just to me personally, I call him Judkins Judgments when he when he has something to say or tell you his 2 cents on what he saw going on the football field. It's always interesting and always good stuff. So thank you very much for that. So with that said, as we wind the show down, when it comes to football, whether it's the 100-yard gridiron or the mayhem of the 50-yard indoor game, those of you in Orlando will bring the mud next time. Jacksonville Sharks, or whether it's Houston, St. Louis, Arlington, wherever you are, we're not going anywhere. The 210's got something to say.
Bang, bang. There you go.
And that's it. Good job on that, Ralph. On
And the blow.
on the
Yeah,
the
we actually had to coordinate that ahead of time because I didn't know. Okay, am I filling in? Am I filling in? Who am I filling in for? And all that I cared about, my first question, honestly, RC to Leo was, am I supposed to do the 210 got something to say or blow on the microphone? And I'd much prefer to blow on the microphone.
Okay.
Pressure, and I'm not going to forget my line.
That's a lot easier. Yeah,
That's
you can't
true.
forget that one.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ralph. Thank all of you. It looks like we still have 9 of you with us all the way to the
Thank you
end
for that.
here. And we really appreciate you guys always supporting us and being here on the show as we talk the NAL and talk football. We will be back next week with Phillip after the bye week. Maybe we'll have some gunslinger developments to talk about. We'll for sure have some stuff to talk about those games we mentioned that are happening this weekend. But thanks for joining us. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end the broadcast. And you guys
And
have,
thank you for our patrons.
yes, thank you to all of our patrons. As always, we don't thank you guys enough. We have one more home game coming up where we're going to have some cool stuff that's
Got a rocket.
the Steubings always, Jordan and them always have great stuff coming on. So we'll see what we'll be able to get you guys cutting the line for.
And you already knew what the theme was, right?
Yep, superheroes.
Yep.
All right.
Superheroes. Lolis has already told me, she mentioned at the watch party that she may just break out her Wonder Woman costume for that
You
game,
better.
which will be awesome. And I have a Superman T-shirt. Maybe I'll wear. I'm not going to break out the Superman underoos. I've been asked not to. So so I won't be doing that. But I'll definitely have some sort of theme going on as well. It should be a lot of fun. Yep. Looking forward to it, guys. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and end the broadcast now. Everyone have a very safe holiday. Take care of yourselves. Be
Guns
good to
up.
each other. Guns up, definitely. And we will see you next week. Thank you, guys.